Worry about the microphone too much.
I would like, pardon me, are you okay? Are we okay now? Okay, good. I would like to call the meeting to order of the Board of Assessors on January 31st to 2/42, something, of Lunenburg, Massachusetts. Before we move to the business, which is rather specific, we're really here to consider the three, it's this page. We're here to consider the form from the Massachusetts Appellate Tax Board, which allows you to use that 3-year average worksheet and therefore pay a lesser amount of taxes on tomorrow. So that's honestly what we're doing today. I know that at some point there maybe says on this agenda that we're going to discuss some other things. Expense vouchers which probably doesn't relate to anybody here. And abatements we are not doing. I mean, we're not discussing them at all because February 1st is tomorrow. So that's actually not correct. And payroll. Okay, but the principal order of business is the use of this form. And if we don't vote to authorize it, then tomorrow we're in some trouble. So that's the reason why we call the meeting. Okay. Before we move to the business, I'd like to do two things. I wonder if everyone here could tell you who they are and maybe what their title is. And then secondly, I'd like to tell you the order in which we'll do things. And I'd like to follow the order that the Board of Selectmen uses, okay? As much as I can. Okay, so we'll start with Rena.
Hi, my name is Rena Sweezy. I was the principal assessor for the town of Groton for 30 years. I've been called in to ask to help out with the abatements.
CJ Carroll, principal assessor.
Christine Higdon, Board of Assessors.
Kevin Fish, also a member of the Board of Assessors.
Okay, so here's briefly what we'll do. I'm going to invite, before we move to the business, which is to get this form authorized, I'm going to invite people to make any comments that are pertinent. Anyone's personal tax is not pertinent today, personal. But before, so I'm going to invite you, the board first, Mr. Carroll second, and then the public for anything you might want to say, comments. Then we'll move to the agenda of getting this authorized. And then lastly, and within that, getting it authorized, there'll be a reading of the motion and so on and so on. Okay, and then as I understand it, the Board of Selectmen then invites comments, but in the reverse order. At the end, we've already voted on the authorization. So you will have the first option at that point, then the board, and then the assessor. Okay? First of all, then, before we move to today's business, I'd like to ask anyone up here if they have any comments for anybody.
I said this at the meeting of the selectmen when we were at the select board, but I'm going to say it again. I'm not sure, as far as I can tell, there was no actual errors in terms of the calculations that were made on the waterfront properties. What I do think was what we dropped the ball on was the communication of those issues that came up. I was publicly apologizing then, and I'm going to publicly apologize again now. We'll do everything that we possibly can to rectify that, including any influence with the board The 90 days on abatements, I will speak for myself. If we have to, we will make very liberal use of the ability to extend those deadlines if we need to.
Okay. Okay. Hearing no other comments, I will ask you to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Yes. Are there any comments? And the first one I'd like to call on is Mr. Franco. Right. And for the most part, I don't know your names, so if you could tell us. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay with the mask on?
I can, yes.
Okay. I am probably, according to CDC, not contagious any longer, but still keep a little bit of distance just to overcaution. I am Lou Franco, 250 Arbor Street. I'm here in a sort of mixed capacity. I acknowledge that I likely wouldn't be making this statement if I were not a member of the Select Board. But my words here are entirely my own, and while individual members of the Select Board might agree with me, I am not here speaking on behalf of the Select Board. But I believe my presence may be useful for multiple reasons. So I would ask the Board of Assessors to correct or endorse what I am about to say as they see fit. But it is your meeting. You run it as you see fit. In order for this entire today, the abatement process, etc., in order for it to all work smoothly, it is important to ground ourselves in facts. In that spirit, I wish to preemptively address some of the most recent incorrect information and innuendo that has appeared on the various private, town-related social media pages. I am offering no opinion as to whether any of this incorrect information appeared intentionally or unintentionally. I assume no motive on behalf of any posters, and whether it was intentional or purely motivated is irrelevant. It just needs to be corrected. I understand people are frustrated, in a bind, and looking for answers and information in order to be useful, and so this process in general, but also today, does not derail into an unproductive sideshow. I offer the following factual points, not opinions, that I hope are helpful. First off, and these are addressing social media posts, but maybe not all had seen these. This meeting was timely posted. It was posted on January 26th at 12:20 p.m., and while it may not have been posted online, it was posted properly where it needs to be posted around town, including on the town bulletin board out front. Now, that may be, people may have the opinion that that's inadequate posting, but it certainly was adequately posted as far as regulations are concerned. 2, all Board of Assessors meetings, except for maybe 1 or 2 throughout all of 2021 and 2022, have been at times during the day. 2:30 p.m. seems to have been the more steady time adopted about mid-year 2022. Before that, if you open the agendas online, you'll see times like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 12:30 p.m., 1 p.m., and a few at 4:30 for the past 2 years. Accordingly, it does not appear that the Board of Assessors specially scheduled this meeting during the day to dodge. It is entirely consistent with their scheduling over the past 2 years. 3, there is nothing that should be controversial on today's agenda. Other than housekeeping matters, the sole purpose of this meeting is for the Board of Assessors to take a vote to adopt and allow the 3-year tax average worksheet and consider it with abatement applications. If people do not want them to allow and consider that, there could be controversy, but that seems unforeseeable, since it is in the best interest of anyone filing for an abatement to allow the Board of Assessors to consider this worksheet and the resultant calculations. 4, while the meeting was timely posted, and therefore challenging it would be a moot exercise, challenging the meeting wouldn't even be in the abatement filer's best interests, because the main purpose of today's meeting is for the Board of Assessors to vote on something that is going to assist abatement filers. Challenging the meeting and forcing a cancellation would amount to abatement filers frustrating their own purpose. 5, and I'm almost done. People should not use this meeting to discuss their individual cases. That's private information that will be done on a one-on-one, case-by-case basis with interchanges between the Board of Assessors and each filer. 6, please keep it civil and factual. Taking time to address false information derails focus that could be spent addressing legitimate factual issues and concerns. And then also, in the same spirit that Mr. Fish indicated, and as I stated at the big meeting over in the high school, the board does have a certain amount of discretion, a lot of discretion, in when people file their abatement applications, as long as they've sort of put a placeholder there for points they wish to discuss, for them to backfill that information later. So if they've said that they have an appraisal coming or something like that, but they don't have the numbers yet, the board does have a certain amount of discretion to allow that in. I would again ask that the Board of Assessors liberally allow that in, as long as people put a placeholder there for that information. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Franco.
you.
I personally, I'm not going to make some kind of a motion to endorse what was said. I think I agree with almost everything that was said. And do you want to do an endorsement?
I mean, I don't think it's necessary to do a formal motion of endorsement, but I will say in public forum here that I pretty much agree with everything that the gentleman said.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Murphy. I live at 97 Island Road. That's on Hickory Hills. My questions to you relate to what's going to happen now with the assessment process. Not me personally, but somebody's going to be coming to my house, correct?
Yes.
Right. And this person will be hired by the Board of Assessors or by the town manager. Do we know who's hiring this committee or this group that's going to come?
As far as I know, that was being coordinated by the town manager and the select board, wasn't it?
Yes, there's currently an RFP out. I know with the MAAO.
I don't know what that means. MAAO?
Mass Assessors Association.
Okay.
It may be posted elsewhere too, but to ensure that we have enough manpower to actually get the inspections done in a timely manner.
And will all those people be certified assessors, or are they going to be data collectors?
That's to be determined. It's that will likely be decided by the town manager and anyone else who's conducting the RFP.
Because I will tell you that I think most people are expecting that they would be certified appraisers to make sure that they
would be assessors. If certified, they'd be assessors.
Certified assessors, I misspoke. Okay, I think that's what most people are expecting. And I think people are expecting that they'll have an opportunity to be heard with their abatement. So I think somebody asked Mr. Carroll, and he said, no, there will not be hearings, that you have to put it in on your form, and it will be determined based upon what's on your form. And I would encourage you to allow the taxpayers, the people who have filed their abatements, to come before you and make their argument for why they think they should have an abatement, and that it should not be simply on what you put on paper. Not everybody was able to get everything that they want on paper, but not everybody would be satisfied, I don't think, by simply meeting some assessor from some other town in their driveway or in their kitchen, making their verbal argument to somebody and have it be decided at that point in time. I think it needs to come before this body so that you can make sure that there's uniformity across the town. Because I'm going to have the assessor from one town, and somebody else is going to have assessor from somebody else, and somebody else. And how are you going to know that there's uniformity and equity? I think you need to rebuild the trust, and that way you'd be able to rebuild a little bit. And I think they're expecting that. And I realize I've only been 3 minutes, but I think that's very important, that there be some type of rebuilding and that they have to have a hearing in front of this body.
What I will tell you personally, we are going to make every possible effort. I'm expecting hundreds of abatements.
Yes.
I will give you as much time as is humanly possible. That may restrict the amount of time to deal with some of the things that you're suggesting.
But
If it's possible,
at my
It's-
abatement, I'd be able to come before this body and make my argument. That's what
And-
I'm asking.
I do understand that, and my response was, we have to look at the amount of time we have. We have to look at people. I'm retired. I have more time. Some people work. We'll do the best we can, Tim, as far as what you're saying. It certainly is a good point.
It's the only way you're going to rebuild trust.
Good, thank you. Are there any other comments?
Hi, John Fortune, 50 Hemlock Drive. How many abatement forms have been submitted at this point? There were 275 or whatever, and 2 or 3 days ago. Do you know how many there are now?
Approximately 350.
350? Okay, so, and will those 350 have to be taken care of in the 90 days? There was a comment made earlier, and I'm just trying to understand it. It can be longer than the 90 days? It's going to take you 6 weeks or whatever to get people even to come in and do assessing, right? So, half of that 90 days is going to be gone before you even start.
To answer your question, as far as I understand it, the board has the option to extend those deadlines if needed. And as noted, I think we will be more than willing to liberally extend those deadlines as needed for that sort of situation.
Oh, okay. All right, good. All right, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Carol Hatch, 41 Hilltop Lane. My question is this: since properties were increased and not the actual buildings, the homes, is there any reason for an assessor to go into our house?
To ensure that public record data is all correct, so any changes that we do make are done on the correct data.
Explain that, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean.
So basically, if the board decided that the assessment was not correct, it would be imperative that the corrections that they made were on the correct data. So we would need to make sure that what data that we have on public record was completely up to date and correct, and there were no errors. It's standard practice for abatements.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I have 3 areas. One, I'd like to start off by thanking the principal assessor for doing as good a job as he's doing under the circumstances, for trying to answer some of our questions, and I do appreciate that very much. And it is helpful in making a difference in my work. However, along those lines, I've been told by the town manager and the select board chair that certain data that I think I need to validate my assessment will not be made available until after the investigation is completed. Now, this is public information that they acknowledge. However, it's too late to request public information and
I
get
see.
it before the deadline.
Right.
So,
What's your suggestion on that?
well, the only cure at this point, the day before the due date, is to get commitment that was mentioned before, that the board would accept updates to our submittals once this information is
And you'll
available.
make that clear on the abatement.
Yes, and I will.
As long as the initial abatement is filed by the deadline, yes, we will be more than willing to accept additional information up until the time that the abatement is actually decided.
And that's great to hear so clearly. Thank you. And I think there's a lot of people out here that will be somewhat relieved by that.
So you will mark it clearly, because in some sense, it's easy enough for us to put you at the end of the stack, it seems to me. I hope I'm not.
Oh, is that what I just asked for?
Basically, what we're asking is if you're going to have additional information on your abatement, if you can just indicate that fact in some way in the paperwork that you submit, just so we're aware that we're waiting on additional data before we make a decision on the abatement.
Clearly, yeah,
Great,
that's
good.
my-
That's great to hear, and hopefully everybody hears that, and
Yeah.
maybe take a little pressure off the realtors out there, too. The last point also was mentioned before, and that's a couple of times, the ability to be present at the hearings. I think that's very important, and I would just ask that the board, if not today, at a future meeting, make that formal so that people have that security, that they're not just going to get a letter in the mail saying denied, that they will have the ability to come back. And I have just one last it's a technical question, but one that's probably not just related that I'm
Carl,
interested
someone
in.
can't hear you.
But
So-
other people may be as well. Is that any better? Can people
Could
hear
you
me?
hear? Could you hear? Could you hear him? Up, louder.
Maybe the mic's got to go up. I mean, I don't want to put it in my mouth. I've seen who's been here before.
Including me.
The technical question is, it's my understanding that the assessed value that goes on the piece of paper is meant to represent the value of the home on January 1st, 2022. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's important.
Donna Fortune, 50 Hemlock Drive. My question is, if someone has put in an abatement and an assessor comes to see your home and your land, this is an interim assessment year. Next year is a full assessment year. Does that mean that my home and my land will be reassessed next year?
So what you're referring to is the state revaluation schedule. It's every 5 years. Lunenburg is due in fiscal year 2024. That does not mean that every property gets visited. That's a different schedule. It's a 10-year cyclical schedule required by the state. So while they do sometimes coincide 5 years and 10 years, that cyclical data is collected ongoing. So it does not mean that all 5,300 parcels within the town are visited in 1 year. It means that typically 500 to 700 are visited every year if we're on schedule. So not necessarily, and an abatement inspection would also put you in our visit history, meaning that for next year's cyclical data, you likely wouldn't come up because there are parcels that we would need to see that we haven't seen.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to read what the motion
Hello, Mary Perkins, 62 Ruth Street. I just had a question about how you were going to organize the forms. Is it first in, first out? Is it by street? Is it by alphabetical order, or you don't know?
We started that discussion almost a week ago, and I would be happy to answer that question, and I'm hoping another week.
Okay.
Because it would drive me crazy if it's not organized
Yeah.
in some way.
I was thinking you would probably do it street by street, but I wasn't sure. Who knows? All right, thank you.
Tom Alonso, 284 Lancaster Avenue, also Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen. At the auditorium Board of Selectmen meeting that I think all of you attended, actually, it was discussed near the end by some members of the assessors that there be some kind of joint resolution or vote. It was proposed between the Board of Assessors and the Board of Selectmen regarding, for lack of a better word, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, for a no confidence vote to reassess things. That was what was discussed then, to which I suggested that it should come from the Board of Assessors as the authoritative elective body. I'm here to ask a question. I'd like to know from the Board of Assessors, notwithstanding the individual comments at the beginning of the meeting, what is the official position of the Board of Assessors? Is it one of we're supporting the assessments and we think that the issue is one just of communication? Or is it one more serious than that in the assessments and the cause for, I don't know, 60 people to on a Tuesday at 2:30 be here?
Right.
When I'm guessing that you're probably less attended in meetings than the Board of Selectmen are. Right.
There's nobody here.
So I'd like to know what the official position is for the record of the Board of Assessors.
Well, could I ask you a question before?
Sure.
My understanding was that the assessments that went out, according to the town's league lawyer, could not be redone. Reassessments could not happen. And that was my understanding almost from the next day. And I'd have to look through my notes as to whether Michael Ray said that to me or who.
I know those discussions have been had with town council. I would say in regards to my question, it's the opinion of town council and whether it can be redone or not is not relevant to my question of whether the Board of Assessors thinks they should be redone. I think there's a large difference between the two. The Board of Selectmen are going to be running an investigation, as you know, but the authority of assessment is in a separate elected body that are represented by, the three of you, well, one in absentia, but and that weight that it would carry from your body as opposed to our body is well different. And while it may not be successful, I think it's important for the people of the town. If I was affected, my property is not on the lake, so I am here in a different capacity.
Yep.
But I think I'd want to know, and that's why I'm posing the question.
You're right.
What did the Board of Assessors feel?
Especially since there's just two of us been here. I think Rich is on the speakerphone. Oh, yeah, I just heard this wee little voice saying, I'm here. This may not be an intelligent thing to do, is to answer your question, but I'm going to do it just because it's kind of in my nature. My view on these kinds of issues where all you had to do was sit at the meeting and understand there's a very serious situation underfoot. My feeling always is that the Commonwealth operates under a system of laws, also under a system of, we'll call them regulations. I don't know what better from the DOR, the Department of Revenue, for example. And we're restricted by those. That's my view. But what we can look for, and I was just chatting with the Lux about various jobs that each of us has had in the past, what we can look for is any wiggle room in the regulations. Laws don't generally have too much wiggle room. And that was my job when I was a dean for 10 years. Students were being dismissed from the college because, rightly so, they had failed some number of courses and had some average and so on. I felt that my secretary knew all of the rules. If your grade point average is so-and-so, you're going to be... And I was there to decide to which students the rules should be applied, to which students I should look for wiggle room, and under what conditions I should say. You don't have to be away for 2 semesters. If you go to the Mount, this is a standard one of my wiggle rooms, if you'll go to the Mount, take 2 serious courses, get a B average, actually a B in both of them, I will consider you to come back after 1 semester. And that's only 3 months out of your life. And this could be the best 3 months of your life and so on. I don't feel that we can go against the laws or the regulations. And if a town council says the properties cannot be reassessed, what's sensitive it is if I happen to feel it should be or shouldn't be. That's the rule and the law. So,
I will say, thank you for your response. I will say there's a huge difference. I'm not asking anybody here, and first of all, they wouldn't let you break the law, right? So I don't think you'd have to worry about going against what the DOR would do, because they would make it very clear you couldn't do it.
why should we just give some opinion on it?
Oh, because of the trust of the people all behind me and the people behind them. That's why, because they need to know, as I would want to know, was this something that, hey, everything was followed and you just didn't like the outcome? Or do I think that there's something flawed in what happened?
Okay.
That is important distinction. Whether or not you can do something about it is secondary to the point of what the people who elected you think you feel is what's going on here. That's why I asked your official position, but I thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And because I think it's appropriate right now, I'm going to tell you that C.J. Carroll, I have asked him question after question after question, probably not every question that exists in this circumstance. And he has a thorough understanding, in my view, of every single thing I asked him. And he came back with, just like he does with you, with a very quick, explicit answer. And then if I said, but I want to see the figures, which I did, I wanted to see the numbers. He showed them to me quickly. I mean, he could go into the computer programs. He knew where the stuff was. That's all I can tell you. And have I looked at every single wrinkle in the law and asked him every single question? I haven't. But I think everything he has done has been correct as far as I can tell you. So, okay. I think maybe oops.
I'm just going to say something briefly if I can. You've asked if, all right. I guess the thing is this, do I think that we follow the formulas and regulations as laid out by the state? Yes. You're asking me, do I think that there's flaws in the system? Unequivocally, yes. Having said that, is that the official position of the board? It is probably not something we're going to motion to make official. But speaking personally and as a member of that board, I can say yes, I do think there's flaws in the system. How much influence we're truly able to have over changing what the system is at the state level is an entirely different question. And you're asking, do I think there's flaws in the system? Yes. Unequivocally, I do. But I also say that as far as what we were given, the systems we were given to follow, as far as I know, everything was followed. So if you're asking, do I think that there's flaws in the system, Mr. Alonso? Yes, I do. That's the end of my comment.
Okay, you're going to get another chance at the end of the meeting. Would you all mind holding these questions, and we'll work through the agenda quickly, probably, I think. Rich, are you there?
I'm here, Chris. I am.
Can you turn up your volume? I can hear.
Not my phone.
It's Rena's. You don't know how to. It's Sheila's phone. Oh, it's Sheila's. I can hear him. Let me just ask him one question. Oh, you did. Are you there?
I am right here, yes.
Could you hear that?
You're on speaker now, Rich.
You're on speakerphone, Rich.
Okay.
Do you have any comments?
No, I've been listening to your comments and to CJ's comments, and also in conversations with other people. The assessment was done in accordance with the rules and the regulations of the Department of Revenue, and I just think that it was done correctly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hang on the phone just in case.
Okay, I got it.
Don't work on your tan.
I'm in the house.
Okay. Moving to the agenda. I will consider a motion to approve the use of the Massachusetts Appellate Tax Board 3-year average worksheet. Do I hear the motion?
So moved.
Okay. Rich,
Yeah.
can you second that? Did you hear it?
I heard the second.
N-
Do you need a
No,
second from
I
me?
need a second. I need a second. That was Kevin. He made them,
Oh.
he agreed with the so moved. Okay,
Okay, and I'll second that.
okay, thank you. Okay, is there any discussion by the board? We've always also had CJ, I think, in on this, with regard to the motion.
I have no comment. I think we know we're going to be.
We're okay. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes 3-0. The motion is approved, 3-0. This is a terrible time to ask this. Who's taking minutes on this?
It's recorded. It's recorded.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, normally Sheila's here, and she does take minutes. Okay, I'd like to invite comments now. First, from those in attendance, second, from the Board of Assessors, and third, from CJ, before we,
Adjourn.
wait a sec. Let me ask CJ, this agenda had, before I go through that thought, there were two bullets here. The second bullet is for the agenda.
Yeah, so we have a few items to vote on. Some of them, none of them are real estate abatements. There are some real estate exemptions. Those are confidential, so they'll have to be on an executive session in another meeting in the future. What is not confidential is motor vehicle excise abatements. If you'd like, what I might recommend is that we have folks give the rest of their comments, because I doubt many people care about other people's motor vehicle excise abatements, so they might not want to sit here and watch you guys sign those.
Okay, I'm just going to agree with that, okay? Use my great authority as interim chairman. Okay, let's go to any further comments that you have. Lou?
Lou Franco, 250 Arbor Street. I do want to say that I think while Mr. Alonso's question may be perfectly legitimate, and it is legitimate, I also observe that it may be premature for the Board of Assessors at this juncture to have an opinion as to whether or not they have confidence in the assessments or don't have confidence in them. I think when abatement applications are considered, the data is going to get more granular. And if you keep getting affirmation that what was done was proper, that's going to boost your confidence in the assessments. If you start getting a lot of anomalies, or when the data gets more granular, that still doesn't mean anything was wrong or not properly done. It just means that the data is more perfectly informed. And so what I'm saying was, when I heard Mr. Alonso ask the question, well, I think it's a perfectly legitimate question. It may be premature for the Board of Assessors to answer it.
Okay,
So-
thank you. Anybody, Carl?
Carl Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. Yeah, I would hope a consideration that the board would take would be as resulting from this investigation, which I presume is proceeding not with the assumption that it was all done right, but with the expectation that maybe there's something to find. Regarding that, though, the comments are made that I have little doubt we'll find out from the investigation that the system was followed, that the process was followed per the state. However, not everything is defined in that process. The state does not require us to have, I don't believe, a separate land waterfront group. I think that's a town-imposed feature, so that's not a state-driven issue. That we
It is, you have to have separate neighborhood codes. Waterfront is a separate neighborhood code, and that's in all communities.
So all of our lakes are considered a neighborhood? That's a question.
They're all currently under what's referred to as Site Index 1, also sometimes called the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a site index code for people with a view? A view shed?
That's not one of the site indexes in Lunenburg at the moment.
Okay. Okay. The other thing in terms of, to me, and I think people, that's a red flag that the system may have been followed, but maybe there's an implementation issue, is when every lake property gets hit with a blanket 135% increase in their land value, that to me is a red flag. And I know for a fact that on Lake Shirley, for instance, and parts of Lake Whalum, not all land is created equal. Some of it because of the eskers, some of it is hardly usable, some of it is very nice and flat. To hit every piece of property as if it had appreciated the same 135% without ever going to any of the properties and looking at them before the assessment, which I thought was required, but maybe I read that wrong, then that to me is a red flag that maybe, whether it's the system or the implementation, that something is wrong when you can do something that across the board and so grossly change it. Thank you.
Right. And Mrs. Luck?
Phyllis Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. One question I think everyone's asking. Pete Lincoln eloquently put it when he spoke. He said he's been to all 351 communities in the state, many of them with lake property. Lunenburg is the only community, according to our old assessors, that is experiencing this situation this year.
But go on.
Also, the town of Lunenburg outsourced the assessment process for 26 years, from 1994 to 2020. In 2020, they brought the system in-house and hired an assessor. Mr. Carroll is our third assessor since that process began. I respectfully request that the town reverse that decision, which has resulted in a debacle this year, and go back to outsourcing the assessment process. The assessors, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, once a year the assessor, someone from the firm would come in, they would explain everything perfectly. There was never a atomic bomb dropped on the town. They looked at many communities. They had their finger on the pulse. The wisdom they were able to gain from looking at a bunch of communities was very helpful. Lunenburg's too small a town to do this in isolation, as we unfortunately are learning this year.
I will comment. I think that your comments have to go to the investigation people. So I'm sure they would have heard you. I'm sure.
Well, I'm happy they're doing an investigation, but in tandem, they should be saying, how are we going to get out of this? What are we going to do to fix it? The thing is that there's nothing we can do. That isn't good enough.
But I think that your questions, I think, are fitting together really well because...
Thank you.
A prior speaker said, I think it might have been Carl, will you wait until, if things are being looked at by the investigation folks, can you wait on the abatements? And I think that we said we'll try it as well as we can. So I think your questions today, personally, I think are really good at fitting together that possibly something can be done,
Thanks for listening.
Okay. Are there any more comments?
Cooties. Hi, I'm Deb Yower, 226 Sunset Lane, Lake Shirley. Just a process question. Are the 5 of you, including the cell phone, going to be the ones to determine whether or not the abatements get approved or rejected, and then it will be handed off to contractors to do the appraisal? Or will they have independent look at those abatement forms?
Typically, part of the board's decision process on a case-by-case basis is the inspection. So the inspection informs the board's decision on whether to grant or deny the abatement.
It happens ahead of it, right?
Oh, so everyone's getting one who submitted an abatement form, and then you make the decision based on that? Is that what I heard?
Everyone's getting one what?
Everyone's getting the appraisal first, and then you look
The
at...
appraisal, it will be an inspection. So, just
What's
I
the
just wanted to-
difference
I just wanted
between
to
an
make that
inspection?
clarification, because appraisal typically indicates a private, a private person or company coming and doing evaluation. The inspection will just be to determine that public record data is correct. From there, the board will use that definitely correct data to determine if the value is correct and if not, what it should be.
Oh, thank you very much for letting me know that. I didn't understand that to be the case. Thank you.
Good. Another question? Jack? I'm sorry. Okay, and then... Do you want to just speak up and speak from where you are?
I don't know if I can speak as long as this guy. John Rabbit, 314 Townsend Harbor Road. Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
with regard
Well,
to...
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me? Okay. With regard to the alignment of the assessors and such, I'd like to point out that basically there's a function of, yeah, you're on a lake, but this is a question of frontage on the lake. There's a question of the quality of the land behind it. There's a question of the depth of the water that's immediately from, and I've had a chance to go through a number of the sites that were, and I did some analytics on that, and there's a pretty wide range. In fact, the initial says that, well, the state says, yeah, 3 sites or so, or 3%, some other folks say. There seems to be, the variables get pretty wide, and it would be incredibly difficult to do a match set. You can do simulations, you can do regressions. Will you be training the assessors on what you want to be directing? Hi, Ray. You were at my house last year.
Yes, I
Bless your
was.
heart. And by the way, I'll tell you, folks, she's really good. She really is, and she's a joy to work with, so don't be afraid of them. I don't know about the rest of Ray, but you do a great job. So anyway, will you be able to create some expectations that you can take and evaluate the quality of that land, not just the acreage and not just the depth? And my data indicates it's going to be tough to even come up with any kind of statistical significance with regard to your assessment, but it'll help you a lot if you somehow create the categories of the things that you want them to look at with regard to it. I think you'll end up with a lot more fair appraisal than just, this is the land mass. That's my point. Thank you very much.
I just want to make a comment on that, because I think it's a good point. This abatement process, as well as next year's reevaluation, will be a great way to improve I think Lou Franco put it perfectly, the granularity of the data.
Yeah. CJ, every year there's an opportunity to improve, and I do that. By the way, I hope your baby's doing really well, and I hope you're sleeping. Okay. No. Thank you very much.
Okay. Would you let him
Carol Hatch again, 41 Hilltop Lane. Given that during the time period that you all looked at, off non-lakefront property also sold at a higher anomaly, is that going to be looked at as well to try to compare and get an idea?
I think we want to be careful not to get into questions that we've been asked not to speak to due to the investigation.
Right. And I can understand, and I'm not trying to say, oh, I want everyone's taxes to raise. I'm not.
But, Carol?
Yeah.
I think it's a fair question. I don't think this is the appropriate time or forum, but I think you should get an answer to it.
Okay.
But it might be in the nature of the way the job is set up. Well, at any rate, I think this isn't the best time.
But
or
at
the
some
best
point, we
forum.
will
Well,
get the answer?
I think it's a good question. So we meet once a month regardless. You can come back and say to me, you thought it was a good question. I better write it down, right?
Thank you.
Okay, now, right, and then here, and then, are we good? No, okay.
Bill Hudson, 90 Hemlock Drive. It has been said that you used your equation for 9 properties on waterfront. Is that correct?
Again, I've been asked not to speak to.
Okay, I will speak. One of them from someone from your office said that one of these homes, $1.4 million, is a two-family. A two-family is not a single family, but it was supposedly used in your equation. That said, there's also 2 other homes that were sold in 2001. They're not on your list that you've just published, nor is this $1.4 million home. So, one of them was a very inexpensive home. The assessment value was only, the sold value was only $70,000 more than the assessed value. And I believe that that's how you come up with your curve and your percentages, right? You take a value that the town had assessed a piece of property for $500,000, it sold for $1 million, right? And then what other equation you put in there to get your land value? I just had my home assessed. This is the 3rd time in 3 years. I have a brand new home. Guess what? The house came in just like the town. I love it.
Wait just a sec.
My land at $1.5 million?
1 minute.
How did we get there?
Thank you. Oh, hold on. Rich, yes, you are on speakerphone.
Yeah, I realize that, but I'm having a very difficult time to listen to some of the comments, and I was wondering, can I just hang on till it's time to, you want me to just hang on until it's time to adjourn? I've heard your comments, your answers, and they're very correct and articulate, and I also understand that some of the questions cannot be answered, but I was just, I just can't,
So,
I'm just telling you, I can't,
would you-
I can't hear a lot of the
Oh, you
a lot of the
can't,
comments.
you can't hear them, right. Got it. Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. We are on tape, Rich, so the meeting, I think the last time, this meeting is online in a day or 2, something like that, okay? So you'll be able to hear the comments, which I think have been helpful and good. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Tom Mason, 32 Hemlock Drive. Was watching the meeting at home on Facebook and heard something that made me come in person. The question I have is on the back of the abatement form, it says that the assessment is fair cash value as of January 1st. I took that to mean January 1st, 2023. Am I wrong?
Well.
2022.
Right.
So there's a glaring misunderstanding on that abatement form. I will need to send in my abatement file again, and you may wish to address this to others that have put in their abatements. It says fair cash value as of January 1st. I signed the form on January 24th, which would lead me to believe it's January 1st,
Well,
2023.
I noticed the same thing, Tom, so thank
Yeah.
you. I just have to tell you, it's a Commonwealth of Massachusetts form, so it's good that you guys asked, because then CJ could say very clearly,
Right.
I wondered the same thing. What's
And
the
I would
January 1st?
Encourage the board to consider whether a non-confidence in the assessment is the right move for the board to make. To give an example, I have 3 different appraisals from independent appraisers, one from 2021, one from 2022, and one from 2023, all $200,000 to $300,000 less than the town appraisal. There is a massive discrepancy, property after property. Good luck in sorting all of this through.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Do we have one last comment? Okay.
Alex Yower, 226 Sunset Lane.
I didn't hear your last name.
Yower.
Oh, yes.
So I just have a quick question. I read the certification standards a couple of times, and I'm not going to pretend that I understood everything I read. But when it talked about the process of coming up with the values, before you go to your analysis, it said to look for, in more than one place, it said to look for inequalities in the data that was acquired, and then to go back and analyze those inequalities more. To me, that tells me that there is wiggle room in the interpretation of the data collected, and that maybe that's why most of the other towns in the state, this didn't happen to. So I believe there is wiggle room within the law.
And that's exactly what I was reading it for also. So I can't tell you where, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, this will be the last question or comment, please. Thank you.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Gina Leone, 52 Pearl Street. I apologize, I ran downstairs quick to make sure of something before I made a comment about it. So I guess my quick question is going to be I guess the value of our homes on the lakefront and how we all feel they were vastly increased. Will that have an impact on the rest of the town in a couple years to come, that if overall supposedly our homes are now worth $1 million or $780,000, does that affect the rest of the town at all when you look at the town as a whole? Where overall you're like, oh, well, there's still 500 homes that are, at X amount, and if we're taking just the pure sales amount into effect, does that actually affect the assessed values of the rest of the town, or is it always going to stay in that neighborhood, like that neighborhood is separate from the rest of the town?
I correct me if I misunderstood your question, but and I don't want to go too far into it because, like I said, I've been asked not to speak to something.
Oh, okay, all right.
Investigation is going, but there are many filters, including this neighborhood or site index filter. So all different factors are applied. The neighborhood is only one of them, and sales each year are considered in order to come up with an assessment for each property.
Right, so I'm saying, then when you look at, this is one type of neighborhood or whatever code you said it was, right? Like the lakefront is its own neighborhood, for the lack of a better term. When properties are assessed, like you said, that rolling 5-year or 10-year or whatever, all the properties in the town are assessed, or whichever the word is. I'm sorry, I know there's two different words, they're very similar and we don't understand the jargon all the time. Is then when the person doing that evaluation, or you guys, then you go and you look at the sale price of like everything in town, and then our neighborhood as a lakefront, because we are part of Lunenburg, we share the same schools, the same trash routes, the same police office, like all that stuff, are our home values or sale prices then factored into everybody else's in town, and then effectively it would raise what their houses are valued at. Is that true or not? Like our neighborhood stays to our neighborhood specific, or it's our town as well? I just wanted some clarification if possible.
Will you answer it or say it's not?
There's a lot that goes into that question, and I think that in order to fully answer it, we would need to go into some details that I have been asked not to speak about.
Okay.
I thought it was a pretty complex question, that in order to
well, if we're going to use 10 homes to evaluate our 500 houses on the lake, are we going to use our 500 houses on the lakes in the same town to aid as part of a 5,000 house community?
Yes. No. And so I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with you to be concerned, and I don't know how to answer. I think that what we maybe have after this whole abatement thing, which may take months.
Right, so deal with that first and then try to figure out some of the rest
It seems to me we also need to have a way of teaching, like a mini assessment course or something, so that those questions can be answered. But you can't expect, I'm not sure that at a meeting like this, it's appropriate. Truly,
Okay. That was my only question. The other thing was a comment, I promise.
understood your question would take me, even if I knew quite enough to tell you, 12 or 15 minutes to answer it. And I don't think it's, but I think maybe at some point it's worth somehow getting the information out there. And the state actually has a wonderful program, but I don't think you have access to, but at any rate, I'm getting off the topic.
Yeah, no, so then my only comment was actually not for me. It's actually for probably most of the people in this room. I guess it was a comment, or the only part of it that would be a question is I'm wondering where this would be posted, and if it's not downstairs, where people could find it. Do you guys have any familiarity with clauses 41, 41B, 41C, 41C and a half, 17, 17C, 17C and a half, or 17D, that are all clauses
Yes,
on
those
properties?
are exemptions.
Yeah, on exemptions for seniors, as well as deferrals, like Clause 18. Those are all from the Division of Local Services from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue.
Right.
Is any of that made available to some of the people that are here at those
The
meetings?
information's online if you're interested in exemptions.
Okay, I'm also thinking of the people that are 65 or 70 and older that might not use computers as much, or like if it's not, we have all these meetings, we've been having these big meetings, and this is the first time I'm hearing someone talk about it, because it's me, and I haven't heard it yet. So I'm saying it, so for the people in this room, and their friends, and my neighbors who might not be here, or might watch this later, that they're now hearing about it. They might not be on Facebook and hear it being talked about. It wasn't brought up at any of the other meetings. Like, I know we're here for abatements, but also, and that's the main topic, but also since we're on that topic, if something doesn't happen, or they still have to pay $7,000 in taxes, maybe they should know about some of the exemptions that they can file
And
for.
maybe on another day, you and I could consider who, like the National Honor Society or something, could take it upon themselves to learn some of those things and then help elderly people, poor people. I don't even remember all of them.
Don't disagree, and I'll make myself available, but I guess it's part of my community. It's not my job to do that. I'm here to tell
Yeah, I
them
don't
so they
know
can
who's-
watch it, and so all of you can hear it, so that maybe you find out about it. And it's something that you might need to apply for. I can't apply for it, I'm 35, so I've got another 30 years. Sorry. That's the only, I'm not trying to berate you or saying, I'm not mad at you for not doing it. I'm just trying to say, like, we should all share information. It's the responsibility, I would think, of your position as well, so.
I think right. It is, it's shared.
Yep, I'm just sharing. Don't shoot the messenger.
Okay. Thank you. I can't, Tim, no, I've called that those two questions were the last one twice, and I think I'm going to hold with that. I can't adjourn the meeting until we get to the second point, which has to do with people's excise taxes, automobile excise taxes, so that we can look at them briefly. So if anyone wants to stay and watch us sign those, fine, but you're also welcome. Thank you for coming.
I believe we have November, December, and January abatements. It looks like we have.
Okay. Wait.
It's 2022 only for November and December, and then for January we have a couple 2021 motor vehicle abatements. Otherwise, it's 2022. So.
And then, I'm sorry, I was writing down. Oh, yeah, hold on. Okay.
You got a microphone.
Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on, Rich. Excuse me, one more comment. Whoa, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Could you, hold on, everybody. Would you mind taking your conversations so that we could have the meeting? And just anywhere on the stairs. Lou, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lou. Good night. Appreciate you coming.
Okay, can we give them 2 minutes to, Rich, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Do you need me?
No, no. Kevin, wait, you only need two signatures. Yeah, we need 2 signatures and we're here. What else? What's the other thing? No, Kevin and I are here.
Do you show you guys want?
I've watched that. I think you did marvelously.
Oh, you're good. Thanks. Okay, it was a team effort. Okay, thanks, Rich. Okay, bye.
Phone, that's your phone. Have her shoot me a text if you guys get this one.
Can I bring that? Oh, you're gonna go. Great, and I was just gonna go bring that to Sheila.
Yeah, and I've got to go pick up kids.
Yeah, she got kids to pick up. Have Sheila text me if she's getting.
That's fun.
CJ probably
Wait.
one he'll gladly give
Wait.
you for a little while.
I really would like these mics to get off.
We're
Hold
still
on.
recorded. We're still in the
Okay.
meeting.
You're still on.
Oh, you want, and
Yep.
you want the, until I adjourn it.
Yep.
Good, thank you.
So, we've got November 2022
Yep.
excise abatements, December 2022, January abatements, excuse me, from 2021 excise bills, and then 2023, January.
Okay, and we can just, as usual, do what we normally do, okay? Thanks. Here, shall we, how about if we take, whoops. There's no, do you want a date of the month and the day and all that stuff? So
Yeah,
this is
it's the 31st of
it's
January.
the 31, okay, I will. Oh, yeah. Did you hear him? Thanks, okay.
I'm running in and on these as I go.
I thought there were questions, a lot of them, but I thought there were questions. There were some that were good.
As far as I know, they already have a public.
Actually, you know what?
Hearing on.
I think we should not say anything. Okay, there's one.
We're still on air, just so you know, while they sign these documents. Just so you know, we're still on air while they sign these documents.
That's the yellow one. This is the one that
I think these two are the ones you still need.
Oh, and these are all repeats. Okay, so that's from that, and I need that. Oh my gosh, same one. Same one. Same one again. this one's done, right? Right. Are there more there that we're going to sign?
Those are exemptions, they're confidential, need to be done in an executive session,
okay, that's
which we did not have on the agenda.
Okay. Okay. And these are done, right?
Yes.
I think that thing goes in that.
No.
Not that, I don't know that that's. One more. I'm going to ask you for a motion to adjourn in half a minute. Okay, is that it?
That's everything.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved. Second. All those in favor?